careers and their journeys, because it's not like this is the most normal job in the world. It's not like you go out for an interview and there's only a handful of people. It's usually a ton of people all going for the same prize, and I think that's so interesting. So before I started recording, you mentioned North Carolina. That's where you grew up as well, right?
Right, right, exactly.
All right. What part of North Carolina is it? Like close to Charlotte, closer to the coast?
Right in North Carolina, right in Charlotte. Yeah.
Oh, no
I
way.
grew
Cool.
up here and yeah, moved out to LA for a long time and then came back here to look
Smart.
after my mom and anything else. But
That's nice.
it's been a good move for a number of reasons. So yeah.
Yeah. So early
What
on, what
about
is how'd you get the acting bug? Was it the normal like, oh, there was a play going on in school or watching a TV or film? What was that first thing that made you think, oh, maybe this is the path I want to go on?
I don't know if I ever really did. I mean, I kind of, dreamed about it a little bit, but I was always really shy as a kid. I would watch, I would, but I played instruments, piano and harp and whatnot. And so I was always in an orchestra for something for the school plays and whatever, but I would have never auditioned because I was, just way too shy for that. And I
Yeah.
kind of fell into acting a little bit by accident. So
Okay. Well, it's actually working. Obviously, it's working out because I think it's so cool. I want to
it's
mention it
working out
now.
pretty well.
So, yeah. So for
No,
the
I feel,
last two seasons, right? You're playing
yeah, yeah.
district attorney Rods on All the Queen's Men. On BET
Mhm.
Plus, you get it like Amazon, all of those places you can get that service. So that's gotta be a lot of fun. Like being on a series, I think no matter what, working's working. But nowadays, the way TV series are, there's like so much development in characters. It seems versus it was. So how much fun has that been playing that role?
I mean, it's been great. And it's so funny when you get these roles, half the time you don't necessarily know. Um, what the extent of them because I it was just supposed to be a guest star and then it became a recurring guest star and then it became a strong recurring guest star and it's so it's been a nice little ride to be honest with you and just a lot of fun seeing just because we're starting to see a different side of this character of DA Rods. She's been strictly by the book for the past season and a half or so, and now we're going into season 8. I mean, I'm sorry, episode 8, and you're starting to see that little, she's got
That's
I won't
cool.
say a dark side, but she's, not strictly by the book by any means, so
That's great, and
it's
that's
fun.
cool you mentioned that. Obviously, to get a job and they say, "Hey, this is you 22 episodes for a season. You're gonna be in every episode," but I think it shows it's a testament to your work because if you're only there supposed to be there for a day or not a day, but you know what I mean for an episode, and then they're like, "Oh, we want you back," and it's like, wow, because you know what, a lot of these episodes are sort of written, something's written ahead of time, so then they're going back and be like, "Man, we have to have Enya and more." They just keep adding you in. That's got to be a really cool to show how great of a job you're doing on set.
It's nice, I don't know if it's me or the character who's resonating with the with the fans, but whatever it is, I'm really happy about it.
Well, that's awesome. So back to your origin story. So how did you accidentally get into acting?
Well, so I was living in Washington D.C. at the time, and I was engaged to a guy right out of college. We ended up breaking up, and I was just distraught over the whole thing. And I just pretty much, basically on a whim, decided to move to California
Oh my god.
just to get a change of space and perspective and all of that stuff. And it's kind of a I think kind of a gutsy move on my part because I didn't have a job. I didn't have a lot in the way of money. I knew one person just sort of right outside San Francisco, and it was my ex's brother.
Uh,
It was an interesting time, but I found a job and I started out doing like a retail job, hated it. And then I got a second job because the retail stuff wasn't paying enough. And it was at a modeling school. And I was teaching guys how to walk up and down a runway, basically. I had, like a little background in modeling all through
okay.
school. And yeah, and so I got hired to do that. And one day, a manager, talent manager, came from LA to scout for new talent at our little school. And as a teacher, I wasn't supposed to get to talk to him. And I thought, oh, that'd be kind of fun. But it was not anything that I was seriously going to try to do. But he came to my office. He saw me in my office, came in, and just started talking to me. He says, have you ever thought about acting? And I was like, well, no, not really. I took one class in college, and he asked me to read some sides, some lines with him. And he looked at me, he says, I really think I think I could represent you. You've got a great look, and now's a good time. And and I just thought, oh, come on, give me a break. I'm not buying this. And he says, would you come to LA if I can get you an audition? And I said, well, would you move to LA? And I said, no, I don't think so. I just moved to San Francisco. And then he asked me if I'd come down for an audition, if he could get me one. In 2 weeks, he got me an audition. I flew down. It was on a Friday. That was my one day off a week. And I flew down on a Friday, got read, got a call back, which was later that afternoon, and booked the first thing I ever read for in my life.
Was that Fresh Prince?
No, it was a show called Out All Night.
Oh,
It
okay.
starred Vivica Fox, Morris
Oh,
Chestnut,
nice.
and Patty LaBelle.
Oh my
And
God. Three
it was
heavy
great.
hitters. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was probably Vivica's first. Yeah, actually, Vivica's and Morris Chestnut's first. Their first series regular roles. I think so. That was
Wow.
kind of cool. But anyway, but I worked Monday, and I just remember I had two lines. I worked for about 2 hours, and I made more in those 2 hours than I was making together with both of those jobs in San Francisco for a whole month. I'm like, let's think about this.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
kind of a night, but I ended up, taking acting lessons and all that sort of thing just along the way after I moved to LA.
Yeah, it's good to have that early success, like getting that first
Yeah,
audition. Again, not like
it is.
after, if it was like 5 or 6 or 10, you'd be like, I don't want to do this. But it's so cool because obviously you had some sort of interest. You took that acting class, and
Yeah,
and obviously it just worked out. And then be able to see, well, wow, this is the fruits of your labor, what it could
yeah.
be. And wow, so you went, so right from there you were like, I'm getting down to LA.
Pretty much. I mean, I was just sort of in that space in my mind at that time, and I was just sort of open, very open to things. I did not study acting prior to that, I was very accustomed to being on stage. As I mentioned,
Oh
I
yeah,
was in
musical.
music.
Yeah, so you're used to people staring at you. Yeah, yeah, no, totally.
So that, and I
Really? That's what it is, right?
and I went through the whole pageant. I did a lot of pageants and all that stuff and stuff like
Okay.
that. So I was used to being in front of people. So I think that's why it came, I guess, somewhat naturally for me.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I was very fortunate to to book something so quickly, and just to be at that particular time in my life where I didn't have anything holding me back, and I just had a lot of nerve at the time. So
Just
that
the
was
fact
fun.
that that guy was there scouting for other people. That's how
Yeah.
so many of those stories are. Because you never know, like when you're going to scout, which I don't. Obviously, they still do that nowadays, but it's not the old school casting director going into like something like the modeling, going into a random comedy club to see maybe where's that diamond in the rough that I can get like early on and be able to have that fresh face. And he saw you, and he was like, "All right, that's why I'm here," you know?
Yeah, yeah, my little Cinderella story, I guess. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was kind of cool. I will say, looking back on it, I think, how did that? I mean, just right place, right time, right situation, all of
Yeah.
that. So
That's
yeah.
cool. So you do that. You obviously end up getting down to LA. Were you still going back and forth booking stuff like with Fresh Prince? Was that when you were still living in San Francisco, or you were still in LA full time yet?
No, at that point I was there full time. Let's see, I booked that first job. It was like in November, and I think I moved down in, I want to say, like March, February
Okay.
or March the next year. Um, the manager, he, took me on to represent me, and that was when there was still a pilot season in place. And so I moved
Yeah.
down pilot season. And unfortunately, I, had a place to stay. I didn't, I mean, just my mom knew somebody that she had graduated from college with who lived in LA, who was kind enough to
Nice.
say, well, until she gets her bearings, she can stay with us, me and my husband. And so they became my second family. So, but
Aw.
yeah, so that it was a fairly easy transition for me. And, just again, the stars aligning and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, totally. And that time, like TV wise, because there's always those different eras of TV. Like you had like the Vancouver boom, like when Vancouver started filming a lot of stuff in the late 80s and 90s. So that was a time that like you had these people that were theater actors in Vancouver and maybe didn't have that, hey, let me go down to LA or let me go to New York, that were able to get that opportunity. There were so many great shows around that time when you started, like Fresh Prince, Wayne's Brothers, Jamie Foxx, Malcolm and Eddie. There was like so many, which there should always be that many shows, but man, like so many cool ones that you were able to early on in your career be able to work on.
That's so true. I mean, there was kind of a boom of sitcoms at that time,
And
and
all
that was back.
great.
Yeah, and that was back when you had 23 to 26 episodes per
Mm-hmm.
season. So, they were really constantly needing co-stars, guest stars, whatever. And so, it was during that time I was sort of booking something, like maybe every 3 weeks or something. Stuff, because there was that much opportunity, as you said, such a great time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you got to
Yeah.
think, not a lot of channels at that time too. So like you're
True.
like it's like anything with a job. It's like we want somebody with experience, but how do you get experience? You have to get hired for that first time. But when you're on those shows, especially in the 80s and 90s, and you could tell me because you experienced it, it's almost like once you're on a show or like even like say like Fresh Prince, it's like, oh, okay, that's the girl that was on Fresh Prince, and then it's like, oh, we're gonna have her episode of Wayne's Brothers and so on. It's like it's such a wild thing. It's like once somebody gives you that shot or you can nail that audition and get that first shot, it was like wildfire in that era. I don't know if it's the same nowadays. If you're on an ABC sitcom as a guest star, I don't know if it's the same because there's so many other shows on at the same time. It's different.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, 100% right about that, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Now, early on, because obviously, like this is got to be kind of a whirlwind in a way. Did you keep any mementos from that early part of your career, like scripts or anything?
Yeah, for sure. I have got some scripts. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you another funny little thing. So, I grew up with two teachers for parents who, and
Ah,
so I
my
had
wife's a
work.
I'm married to a teacher. Yeah.
So yeah, so I definitely had that work ethic, and got to get it, have a job. Just like don't be flying by the seat of your pants with no other, nothing else, a fallback thing. So I had actually studied radio, TV, film in college with an emphasis in
Sweet.
journalism. But I had, but my degree was more on the production side than in front of the camera. So I was able to get a job at Warner Brothers. And so during the time that I was got to be a production secretary for one of the unit production managers on a sitcom, on a bunch of sitcoms. But so I actually have a script. I say all that because at one point, I got to be a stage PA. And so I actually have the original script from the pilot for Friends.
Really?
Yep, I
Wow.
did. So here's a little piece of trivia for you. So try to guess the original name of for the pilot, what the pilot was
Of
called.
the name. Oh my gosh.
Here's true.
The
So
coffee
there
shop
were
or
that would have been a better title.
you really? Oh my god. What was it?
It's a horrible title. The problem was there were, if I'm not mistaken, six different pilots during that pilot season that had the word friends in it. So the original title for Friends is Six of One.
Six of ugh.
Six of One.
That would not have made it.
Horrible.
Was it
So
all the
and then
same people when you were on that for the pilot? It was those
mhm,
six. There was no swap outs or anything. Wow.
no swap outs. It was originally written with it was sort of supposed to be sort of based around Courtney Cox. She was the most well known of the six of
Oh, that's
them.
true. Yeah, Bruce Springsteen
Bruce
video
Springsteen.
and
Yep,
yeah.
yep, exactly. exactly. And yeah, I mean, it was really, that was a really cool experience, especially since it became, the show that it became.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Wow.
I
Would
still
you have
have that
thought
sort of
that? Like when you're
no,
there, obviously, anything you've ever been on, it's like you never know. You can maybe feel because you're controlling one part of it. You're acting, you're scene. You don't know how the edits are going to be, the way the story's going to be put together and everything. So, but like when you read that script, six for one, right? Six for one.
one, yeah, like
Uh,
yeah.
like, would you have thought in a million years that that would even been all right? It's gonna get a second season, right? Is that crazy?
I didn't. I thought it was terrible. I mean, I really didn't find it funny at all.
Yeah,
And you're there every day, and you're kind of watching it, and you seeing the writers changing the lines and all that sort of thing. And I just thought this is not really funny. And if you look at, just for anybody who's into this kind of stuff, if you go back and look at the original episode, you'll see. I mean, massive change in the characters from the first episode to
yeah.
the last season. So yeah,
That's
and
neat
the
to do
jokes.
to go back and watch pilots because even the first Seinfeld pilot, maybe it's why
Yeah,
those shows actually did stand the test of time. It'd be cool to watch any of these shows, go back and just
true.
watch the first one because maybe that's why they did work because they watched the first one and said, guys, this isn't working. Like, we need to change stuff. And maybe the ones that fail are the ones that are like, this is it. And they keep the same formulaic thing, don't change anything. But no, that's interesting. That's cool that you were able to be there. What other, so what was it like doing that job? Like working on different sets from the behind the scenes versus being in front of the camera.
I mean, I really loved it, and I really value the time that I got to do that, be on that side of the camera, because it just gives you a whole different perspective as an actor.
Yeah.
The importance of well, a lot of different things. I did production as well as post production. Learned a lot doing post production, especially with editing and whatnot, and knowing when to hold for laughs and don't do, and not making too much noise, just little things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was I really loved it. I mean, I can tell you stuff about how they add in sound effects, and I became friends with all the prop guys that and how you have to set up I don't know, props, and so that they're not identifiable. They're identifiable, but you can't really see a name. For example, if you ever look at, say, a cereal box or something, say it's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Kellogg's, right, you'll see Rice Krispies or whatever, but Kellogg's, you'll see like KEL and then a piece
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
tape, like that kind of stuff, so that they don't have to pay.
Isn't that just a silly thing? Like that's part of the. It's like Kellogg's can't get money for that, but it's like we all know that it's Kellogg's. You're just
Right,
taking out the
exactly.
first, like every brand, whenever they do it, or even if they do the, let's not have the name on it, but have the same sort of logo. Like on app, instead of an apple, it's like a pear, but it's the
Right.
same like white silhouette. It's crazy, and it's pretty cool. Now you just see that on your IMDb. So step by step, you worked on. I interviewed Bill Bickley.
Did you? Oh my gosh,
Yeah, I
yeah.
interviewed his best friend from growing up. Like it's so funny when you think about anytime you ever hear like, oh yeah, these two athletes went to the same high school. It's like that's insane. Like how can two like in anything? But it was Bill Bickley. God, I'm gonna. Oh my God, what was her
Big
name?
orange, big
But she's in
orange
a
or
million things. I should know her name, but I interviewed his friend Susan Lanier Bramlett, and they
okay.
were like best friends. And she mentioned like, oh yeah, this guy Billy was really nice, and he gave me a job. And then I'm like, oh, what was his name? She's like, oh, William Bickley. And I look, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy's done like so much, created so much. And the other woman,
Yeah.
it's gonna come to my. She has blonde hair. She's been in everything. She's one of those. Feel like she was even on like Dallas or all those soaps. I'll get her name.
Oh,
It'll eventually
Char-
come to me.
Charlene Tilton or Donna
She,
Mills
you
or
know, it's terrible. You ever have a reference for an actor? Like I know a million things that she's in, but the only thing I
yeah,
can think of right now, she plays herself in Pee Wee's Big Adventure at the end of the movie.
which I never saw.
Oh man, but
uh,
I'll get her name real quick. But anyway, yeah, no. So Bill, talk about a show. I remember watching that pilot when I went to interview him because I thought that'd be really interesting, and I watched one of the episodes of Happy Days that he directed early on, or no, he didn't direct. He wrote, and it was crazy because Happy Days used to be shot like a movie, and it was kind of
hmm
like boring and slow. and then they changed it. And obviously, look what happened with that. But Step by Step, talk about another show like his Family Matters, that you have a character that's not in the first 5-6 episodes big, and then they're the show. Urkel
Yep.
and
Yeah.
also Cody on Step by Step. He became like this huge character in that show.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun. You just never know what can happen in the business, which is one of the reasons that I love it so much. You just
Totally,
never
yeah.
know.
Yeah, and her name's Morgan Fairchild. I
Oh,
think I
yeah, of
described her
course.
terribly, but
Yeah.
yeah, and a million things. But yeah, there were 3 friends growing up, them 3, and then they all like go off and do their thing. But yeah, Step by Step. I see Getting By, On Her Own, High Society. So some
Yeah. Yeah.
really cool shows with some amazing names. Jean Smart. Now she's
Yeah.
like
Jean
monster.
Smart and Mary McDonough.
Yeah.
Not sure. Mary McDonough played uh, the love interest. I can't remember in Dances with Wolves with Kevin
Oh yeah,
Costner.
yeah, yeah. With Kevin Costner. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's cool to get that perspective, because then when you're going in for auditions at the same time, because you're doing this both at the same time for a little bit, it's good to know maybe like, hey, what's the casting director say they're looking for, or director. So when you go in for an audition, you're more prepared, because you never know what the conversation is after you leave that room.
For sure, for sure. And I got to do a bit of casting too. Actually, I was working with the executive producers for uh, High Society, and
Oh,
so
cool.
that cast. I mean, I had never done any casting at that point or been on anything like that before, but just the process. I mean, that was a huge eye opener. I mean, we saw hundreds of people, and it was just it's just I would not want to do casting at all. It's just because quite honestly, in for one of those characters, it just they the guys really weren't even able to articulate what exactly they were looking for.
I'm
They
sure.
just knew what they saw. They knew the person when they saw
Yeah.
them. So
No,
it
that
was
is
just
funny
kind of
when you think about that. And I'm sure you've seen that from both sides, like even being on a show, and it's like, man, why can't they fill this person? Because I've talked to some casting directors, and it's like, I can't find the right person. And sometimes it's like a very principal character that matters. And then sometimes
Mhm.
it's somebody that's just in the background. Like I talked to a casting
Right.
guy that was obsessed with Woody Harrelson for Wildcats, and he's big in the movie, but not like a main part. And this guy kept bringing him in for auditions, even after the director was like, "I don't want to see this guy again." And then after 3 months of not being able to find that guy, brought him in again, and they finally casted him. But you just never know, because you never know what you're looking for. It's got to be so hard. You're making a decision on the people that you're going to trust with, you know, millions of dollars in a sense, for three,
That's
4 months, and you have to work with them.
that's true. That's true. It's a
It's
tough job.
but that's cool. You get to see that. That's neat to be able to see that early on. So you're doing acting classes around this time. Was there any type of, because in the beginning you're in mostly like, TV comedies, TV sitcoms, and then you're I'm sure you're auditioning for others, but in '98 you're on NYPD Blue.
Right.
That must have been a cool little change of pace to see a different
It
way of a show
was.
is ran.
It was, and that was a huge show at the time.
Oh my god, yeah.
And I remember because that they were the first show where you saw body parts that you didn't normally see, and so that you had to sort of sign off on on agreeing to, well, if
Yeah.
you're asked, will you show your rear or what, partial nudity or whatever. And I remember like, oh boy, I did not want to say yes to that, but it was just kind of like, well, say yes because it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen, and maybe you can negotiate it later and all that. So if you're lucky enough to get the job and that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
on that episode of all things, I played a stripper, but I didn't have to take my clothes off. So
Oh,
it
there you
just
go.
it
That's good.
so it worked out just fine. But
Yeah.
that's the one where that was one of those cases where I got called back, I think 3 times, something like that, and you had to do something different every time. And yeah.
Yeah, is that like you
It,
said, like even getting called back 3 times for a role? Did you have a lot of lines in that? Is there just one scene of being interviewed there?
it was just a couple of scenes. Nicholas Turturro was interviewing me and all that, but yeah, but they kept changing the lines, and then at one point I even had to dance. Like, okay. That was, for the audition, which
Yeah.
I think that was the worst part for me,
I'm sure. Yeah,
but
I'm sure. It's
but
auditioning enough is I'm sure an awkward experience. Probably an awkward experience that you're used to the awkwardness of it. It's like three people there, and it's like it depends. I'm sure some rooms are more inviting than others, so that's got to be a little awkward to be like, okay, now can we try this new thing? And it's like,
yeah, and then
yeah.
especially, and it's so different. Yeah, I'm sure it's so different now with
Oh
everything,
my god, it's
practically
gotta like
everything
be
is something.
horrible. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
just to
and,
not be able to have that like moment in that room to be able to gel with people. I think from both ends. I think maybe that's why that some movies that are strictly doing that. I know most are, but it could seem clunky with the casting in some cases. Because obviously that's something that's always happened, like in film, like that in TV, like that can happen. But you don't get to build that rapport or be able to say, hey, can you do this a different way? Right on the spot. I'm sure obviously you can email them back after you watch the film that they do. And it's just not it's no emotion in the experience.
yeah, and the casting directors used to ask you, "So, do you have any questions about this? Do
Oh
you have any?"
yeah.
And that's not you don't get to do that anymore. Like, well, let me,
Yeah, because that could have been something that got you the job.
throw
It's like
something against the
it
wall and
could
hopefully it sticks.
yeah, because you could have been able to ask a question that was something like, wow, we never thought about that for that character. And it really opened their
Right.
eyes. And before you even read a line, they're like, wow, you know what? She's thinking more than anybody that's been in here today. But you just don't have that chance anymore, I guess. Or the
Yeah.
like I talked to William Sadler, who he auditioned for Tales from the Crypt, and some the casting director was like, "Oh, I know him from New York. He's a Broadway guy. Let me just give him this little line." So he was like, he got the script and he was like, oh, I want to do this one. And they're like, no, no. So he did his audition that they wanted him to do. He went outside, he came back in, he's like, can I please read for this? And then he read for it, and then it was like, that's the role that changed his life. And it's like, would it have happened five films down or five auditions down? But you just never know. But if you don't have that opportunity in that room, it's not like just a different time now. Maybe we'll go back. Maybe. I don't know.
I hope so, but I've talked to a few casting directors, and they, and as Matt, the ones that I spoke with, they miss that dynamic too, but they kind of don't really think that it's going to ever fully go back to the way it was, which is it's a shame. It's a shame, but I mean, I'm sure
Yeah.
that from a financial standpoint, this is probably, I don't know if that what the main reason is, but from an efficiency standpoint, I don't know, this may be easier. I'm not sure, but
Yeah,
I'm
I'm sure
glad I
it's the
got to be
money.
a part
It's
of
always the
it.
money. It's like it's even corporations like during COVID. Like I love it because I get to work
Yeah.
from home and be with my kids and stuff, and not have to go on a train to New York City. I love that. But in
Mhm.
the same sense, obviously, there's some things that are missed, like the commute, and like there are those things I guess you benefit. But the company is like, well, I have to pay rent each month, or do electricity and all these different things. So I see it, but I think in something that is so important as in like chemistry, I just think
Mhm.
there's probably not those moments anymore. Maybe somebody's audition you've never seen before, like an actor and actress that hasn't been and
Right.
stuff. Maybe they can get that chance. But in that room, when the people walk in the first time they see, because the same thing with you, like when the guy was going to scout for the male models and he saw you, like that's kind of those moments when it comes to an audition, like a cattle call, when they're looking for that next so and so. Like I don't know how they do that nowadays.
I don't know. I really don't know. And it's funny, speaking of the whole chemistry thing, they used to do chemistry tests between actors as well. I did a film last year, and I never met with the other. I was playing love interest with another actor, and there was a scene where we had this passionate kiss. And so, you just kind of go for it and hope it works out, and hope it, looks okay on screen and all that sort of thing. But yeah, it was interesting, and I mean, overall, I think it worked out okay. But
Yeah,
it's just a little awkward to
yeah.
never met somebody before and like, okay, let's go for it.
Yeah, that's gotta be. Yeah, that's gotta be. Yeah, because you want to practice everything. Obviously, your job is to whatever is seen on camera to be seem like authentic. So if it
Yeah,
came off like this is the first time or something,
that's true.
that's really funny. So it's
Uh,
cool. Again, like the NYPD Blue Monster Show at the time, Ally McBeal, Steve Harvey. But I think one thing that was really cool because I think it's like Scorsese says it. There's like so many people looking back. Roger Corman, like you having the opportunity to work on Black Scorpion, which I'm going to tell you right now, I've never seen before, but over the last week, I've seen half of them. They
oh
are
no.
so cool. I I love them, and they're so neat. And I think one thing that's cool about like what Corman would do, or even like the Full Moon, some of the Full Moon projects in the '90s, they would always look good. Like I don't know the last time you watched one or watched a clip, it still looks really good. Like it doesn't seem dated, and it's the cast is great. Having Frank Gershwin as a guest villain in one is so cool.
Yeah, and Adam West and
Yes.
I think Soupy Sales, and I mean all these great old actors. Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was really cool to get to work with those actors as well. And now that was a case where I actually read for that 4 times, got called back 4 times, believe it or not, for that. And each time I wasn't enough this, I was too this, and whatever. And what I kind of attributed my final success in getting that role to a girlfriend's dress. I had a friend visiting from the East Coast at that time, and they called me again for the fourth time. And I remember saying to her, "You know what? I don't even know what else I can do. I mean, I have no idea. I don't even know what to wear." And she says, "Oh, well, let me see what if I have in my suitcase." And she travels with lots of clothes all the time. She goes through, and we find this teeny tiny little leopard print
Oh,
dress.
I was gonna say it was a leopard because they use that a lot.
That was it. And that,
That's
I mean, I
cool.
don't know if that dress was the inspiration for all of the characters' wardrobe going forward, but again, you never know what is going to be the thing that puts you over the top, I guess, or keeps you from going over the top, I guess.
Yeah, and the writing was really good. It was really neat, and yeah, your chemistry with Argyle, and like
Yeah.
the episode that I got that I watched yesterday was the one with Frank Gershwin, and it was funny because the writing was so good because he was making the jokes about calling you the old lady, and then in the episode, then you all turn old. It's great.
That was so okay, and it's funny you mentioned that because whenever I'm asked, is there one show, any show you especially remember love doing or whatever, it's that one. I
Yeah,
mean, that it's just the prosthetics that they had to do to make us look, like we're in our 90s. That was a lot of fun. But that was really interesting too because that day after we BT is the actor's name,
yeah,
Argyle, who played Argyle. We were in our makeup, and both of us were just in the grouchiest mood. I mean, both of us were just kind of tired, just like, oh, when are we going to shoot this scene? I mean, it was really, and I don't, and we always got along great and had great rapport with everybody in the cast and whatever. But the funny thing was, we shot the scene, got us out of the makeup, and we're both like, it played like some sort of weird psychological trick on both of us, seeing yourself aged. I don't know. It was the weirdest thing. But yeah, but that was a lot of fun. That was really a lot of fun. And I remember, God rest his soul, Frank Gorsham. He was so much fun to work with too.
yeah. He was a
Yeah,
real ham, like
yeah,
always, and he always looked the same. Even like, even like thinking back to the Riddler. That's almost like a 30-ish year difference. Same
yeah,
energy, same everything. It's almost like him and John Aston. They both have this energy that it seems like they'll have it for. And Adam West, like yeah, it's really cool that you had the opportunity to do that and to work for Corman because he is like I don't know. He's like one of the godfathers of film in a sense. Like he he's so he's so cool, and it's just such a cool thing. And for you again, you're on
yeah.
something 22 episodes. Like that was pretty neat that you had that.
It's funny because I still have the same manager that I had all those years ago, and
Really? That's cool.
just yeah, and just by chance, it's funny. We're talking about this. Just by chance, he met up with Michelle Lintel, who played Black Scorpion, just yesterday for lunch.
No way.
Yeah. So we kind of talked a little bit on the phone and, just kind of caught up a little bit. So yeah, that was
If you
fun.
ever have, I always tell people because it's like you never want to Google yourself. So I'm sure, but if you ever go on YouTube, the comments, people love this show, and I'm sure in the last 10, 15 years with like the internet and things, I'm sure you've had more people reach out about it. Or have you done any Comic Cons like
I
and
have.
gone
It's
to
been a
them
while.
for it?
Yeah, it's been a while since I did one, but yeah, but you know what? I might have to see about doing that one of those again because
Yeah,
they were lots of fun. I loved them, going to doing the autographs, and then the fans are such fans, like you said, they
yeah.
know all the episodes, all the lines, all the everything.
No, that's really cool. It just was something different at that time because I don't know what other shows. If there was a female lead superhero, I mean, obviously there's like Supergirl in the '80s, like Xena was on in the late '90s, but it was just it just still looks good. Like it's always great when you watch something that's so old and you're like, how does this look? And like that show really does hold up.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you said, hear you say that because it was pretty campy, and but I
Oh,
thought, but
but
you
yeah,
know, but
yeah.
still fun, and you really couldn't go too far with anything because it was a comic book kind of series, and yeah, I'm glad that I got to be a part of it too.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. No, it's always cool, like to have the opportunity, like we talked about, like what you're doing now, like to be on a series, and it just gives you the opportunity to like build a character development, like try different things with the one character. But again, all that time you're still working. You were on all of those great, like it was so cool thinking of that era, like so many great comedies and sitcoms, like The Parkers. I watched all the time as a kid. Son of the Beach was ridiculous and but so funny. Fox VIP, you did a lot of the Fox like around that time, like some Fox shows.
I did. Did you know that VIP was produced at least a part by Howard Stern? Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. I would think Son
Yeah.
of the Beach. Wow,
Oh, what did
VIP,
I
really?
Son of the
That's
Beach?
cool.
Is that what I said? Yeah, is that what I said? So yeah, Son of the Beach. Yeah, that was for that one because I was up for the role of I can't remember her name, but Lila Arcieri got the part, but it was down to three of us that for one of those series regulars for that series
Really?
regular. And unlike most callbacks, for that final callback, we had to do the callback was done in a big auditorium. Um, and there were only about maybe I'd say maybe 10 people in the room, but we had to walk down an aisle and then to the front and do the lines with somebody who was, sitting right there at the front. But about halfway down the aisle, Howard Stern was sitting there. And and apparently commenting to all of us as we passed by. So we were all just a little like, okay, it was interesting times. But it
My
was funny. I
God.
mean, it wasn't bad or nothing like that. But it was just kind of, you see people that you recognize, like Howard Stern. I once read for what was his name, Sean Cassidy, who I remembered from
Oh,
being a
yeah.
kid. He was one of the Hardy Boys, that kind of stuff. He was kind of a heartthrob way back when. And, I remember, and at that point, he was directing something that I had auditioned for. But, it's always interesting, or it was always interesting to sort of run into people that you remember seeing as a kid, for example.
Yeah, I'm sure that's got to be cool. Like in all the shows that you worked on, like because there's probably so many, like especially Steve Harvey, great comedian. It's got to be cool to be on those shows, and it's like, wow, this is neat. Like that show was huge. Like man,
Yeah, yeah, and Steve is a good guy. He was a lot of fun to work with, also very down to earth. And just very supportive and just in your corner. Yeah, oh, don't you worry about it, that's funny. And he just made the set a lot of fun to be on. Most I've been really fortunate. Most of the sets that I've gotten to work on have been really just genuinely fun. to work on.
That's good to
So
hear. Yeah, because it's got to be hard to like be because you're going, there's this group of people that are together every week shooting something. Then each week a guest star will come in. So it obviously for them it's advantageous to make the person feel at home and comfortable. Obviously, that I'm sure that wasn't always the case in on some sets, but that's cool for you to say that. Like I've heard cool stories about people that it's like, oh yeah, they helped me with a line. And it's like they didn't not like they didn't need to do that. They were kind to do that, but just makes you feel like, wow, this is really, they want this to be a success. Like they know that everyone that is here matters. So it's cool that you're able to get some advice, especially Steve Harvey. That's cool.
absolutely.
And then you're again back to like really cool shows like CSI Miami, Sopranos, and then I think one obviously all these different genres that you're working on. And then was Days of Our Lives in like 2008 the first time you did a soap, or did you audition for them prior?
I had auditioned for them before, but I had even screen tested for a role on uh, The Young and the Restless. But no, I've never done anything. I've been a day player twice on Days of Our Lives, but that's it. And it's funny because I always said I wanted to do a soap. That's the one thing I kind of wanted to do as an
Really?
actor. Yeah, I loved soaps when I when I was in college. In fact, I worked my class schedule around all my children for a while.
That's great.
But I don't know. It sort of eluded me. There's a new soap that you may have heard of called Beyond the Gates that I believe airs. I think it's starting this Monday,
Really?
and they shoot it. It's going to be a new CBS soap that is being shot in Atlanta right
Cool.
now. I was on hold for a couple of roles there, but it didn't happen either. So I don't know. There's something about me and soap operas that almost, but not quite.
How did you like it when you're on Days of Our Lives? That must have been because that's like almost like boot camp for
Yeah,
acting
that's
because
true.
it's so like quick, 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 quick. We got to get this going on.
It is. It is. That's a good analogy. Yeah, I mean I liked it. I liked it. It's more about who I got to work with. The second time that I did Days of Our Lives, I worked with Jackie Harry, which was a lot of
Oh
fun.
my God. Yeah, that's got to be
She's
awesome.
kind of iconic.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's funny because I think getting to do that was very helpful for the series that I'm on now,
Yeah.
All the Queen's Men, because of the way that they shoot at Tyler Perry Studios. I don't know if anybody's talked to you about that in
I've
the
talked
past,
to
but
a couple people that had, but not regulars, like one off things because it's like, it's so crazy how that's like a hub now. And it's so great
yeah,
for you. Obviously, you wanted to be there with mom anyway, and you're so
yeah,
close to Atlanta.
it's worked out really nicely, really nicely. The way that they shoot most of the shows, or I'm told all the shows, is that essentially you'll get. I'll just talk about all the Queen's Men. We essentially get one or two takes at best for
Okay.
any given scene. The show is there's 16 episodes per season, and everything is shot within about 2.5 to 3 weeks, a whole season.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so, yeah, so the days are long. They're typically, 14-hour day is not unusual. And the way it's done is that, say you have uh, a scene, or say you have 5 different scenes from 4 different episodes in this room. So rather than shoot, okay, we're going to do episode 1 today, episode 2 tomorrow, whatever, you
Oh,
shoot
wow.
all of the scenes that are in that location, which is very, very efficient. But it also kind of forces you to sort of um, you have to learn your lines very quickly, and you have to know what's going on. But between the episode, from episode to episode, you have
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
really need to read all of the scripts before you even start shooting. So that you have an idea of what's going on. So it's yeah. So in that way, doing the soap opera work actually was really helpful, being able
Yeah, I
to
bet.
memorize.
Wow, to shoot all in the same room. That's got to be tough for the people. They walk around with magnifying glasses, making sure hair length, shirts, like everything. Because if you're shooting something that, yeah, that's pretty cool. That is
Yeah.
super efficient. And again, at the end of the day, it's almost like the soap logic. It was like we want our summers off. Like we don't want to
Mhm.
work in summers. We don't want to work near the holidays. And I've talked to a few people, and it's like it was great. It's a lot of work, and you're tired, but you're not working all year.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Now, when you first hear you're going to do it that way, you're like, "What? Wait, what? Hold on." But yeah, but you learn, and that's another case where it's a really supportive environment. They even have people just outside the sets to read with you, and they'll come up to
Wow.
you like, do you want to run lines? And to run lines with you. So that's that it's really nice. It's very supportive for the actor there.
It's an amazing air, like that whole area, like Tyler Perry Studio is supposed to be phenomenal, and it's huge, right?
It's huge, it's beautiful. I mean, I've been on a lot of lots, and it's definitely the prettiest I've ever seen, and there's just this really cool energy, from the actors, from the people who work, security, on the lot. I mean, everybody, there's like I've said this a few times, but there's like seemingly a sense of gratitude that everybody seems to have. They're just happy to be there and happy
Yeah.
to be working. So, it's a really cool environment.
That is great because you think about like in Hollywood, like how many places are closing down, like studio wise, and you see the doors shut, or like they knocked down that entire neighborhood that they used all of those for like Lethal Weapon, Christmas Vacation. Like they tore that whole like history, like just to build studios so they don't have to worry about doing. Yeah, but that's cool that Tyler Perry they're building one in Jersey. Supposedly Netflix was bought this old like uh military base that was down the shore that's been like defunct for years. They're supposed to be building like a studio because then they can have that pipeline to New York. I don't know if that's really going to happen because but you never know, but that's cool. Atlanta has that hub and Marvel's big down there. A lot of movies have filmed down there
Yeah.
the last 20-25 years.
Yeah, yeah, it's really been a surprise. I mean, when I moved back here, I figured, well, maybe I'll get to do a commercial or something. I'll try to get an agent. Maybe I'll get to
Yeah,
do a commercial here and there. And I wasn't really sure what my plan was, but my mom, like I said, is getting older, and it just kind of felt like the right time to move back.
totally.
Uh, but I've been, yeah, really surprised and thrilled actually that the the fact that there's been so much opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's great. And at what time? Because you're doing this. How do the other avenues come about? Like Deal or No Deal. You're on Prices Right as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, in LA, you don't just have it, let me start. On the East Coast, you usually have one agent that represents you for commercials, for anything that's on camera. You have one agent. It's not that's not the case on the West Coast. So you have a commercial agent, you have a theatrical agent, you have somebody who represents you if you model, if you do hosting and reporting. So I did all of those things, and so I did all of the, and if you dance, there's an agent for everything. And so so yeah, so when these opportunities came up, I thought, well, okay, let's do this, let's try that. So yeah, the Deal or No Deal opportunity, interestingly enough, came to me through my hosting agent at the time. And I'd gone in one day, and there was like one other woman in the room, or waiting room, waiting to speak with the producer. And I got a call back the next day. Well, I was originally told that Howie Mandel needed a co-host for a new show. So that's how, like, okay, great. So the next day when I go for the call back, there's a room full of people. And, at that point I had been in LA for a while, so I kind of knew who my competition was for
Yeah.
hosting reporting jobs, and I didn't recognize anybody in there. And I called my agent. I said, is this a hosting job, or is it a modeling job? Because there's there's a lot of beautiful women here, and I don't, know any of them. I got well, here's the thing. They've kind of changed the idea, and here's what's going to happen. And I thought, I don't know if I just didn't get the concept. I really
Yeah.
didn't understand Like, what do you mean? 26 no, I don't yeah. Um, but I went on through the callback and I was asked to do the pilot. But I turned it down just because I just didn't have the vision. I just didn't see it. But after the first season, I was starting to see a lot of the spokesmodels showing up on shows like Entertainment Tonight and doing little hosting things for, E and whatnot. And I thought, oh boy, I mean, I may have shot myself in the foot here by not taking this. So, so I called the agent. I said, "Is there any way you can see if you can get me if they'd consider, And they did, and so I got to do it. Yeah, so
That's
that's
cool.
how that's that story.
I think it's
But
such a nerve wracking show. How far did you were you ever like one of the last few that were
I
left?
was. Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And you always wanted you definitely wanted to be chosen first. That chosen as the one that they thought had the $1 million in it
oh
because
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know, yeah, because we're standing on in about 6-inch heels for a long time. After a while, you're like, oh, please pick me. But it was just from a comfort standpoint. You had more airtime, more FaceTime, but
Yeah.
but you're killing you. But no, but that was a great experience too. And it's a great example of how you just never know, or how I just never knew what one opportunity could open the door to another
Yeah.
opportunity.
That is true. You never would think that show would be as big as it was because the concept was silly. Like how he had like so much fun with it, and he was like kind of off TV for a little bit, and it was just. I talked to Patricia Cara. I don't know if she was there at the same time you were
I
there.
love Patricia. She's one of my
Yeah.
closest buddies.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
was that was appointment television. Everybody watched that show. I don't know how quick it became that hit, but it was like, oh, I gotta watch. And then when it was, oh my god, when you had the cliffhanger for the next one, you had to wait, and they were like, oh man, we'll have to come back after the break or next episode. But it was just whenever the models would open, like you did this, but when you open it up
Yes.
and it's like a high amount, you probably were like, it's like you have no say in it, but you see just like the pain on these people, like losing like what's the lottery, like a huge chance at big money. That's like,
Yeah. And you're really pulling for the
oh yeah,
contestants. You want them to win. I know it hurts. I mean, you're like, I'm so sorry, it's not me.
yeah. Oh man, that's so cool that you had the chance to do that. And yeah, this has been so much fun. What I love asking folks, I asked you a few of the questions early on when it comes to like mementos, things kept. But how about like if this wasn't what you were gonna do? Again, I don't know if IMDb bios are always 100%, but it mentioned like engineering, like that was the original
Yeah.
to DC. How crazy
Yeah.
was DC for college? Just with five or right? How many colleges are right there? I know there's a ton, but like
10. They're
five
actually
big one, right?
they're like 10 actually. I
10? That's
love
insane.
yeah,
Yeah, I
I
bet.
loved going to school in DC. I
Beautiful.
it was fantastic. And I went to George Washington, which is literally 6
Nice.
blocks from the White House. Um, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really very cool. I lived right around the street front, right around the corner, sorry, from the State Department. So, I could see the Washington Monument from my window. So yeah, I loved it. I loved it.
That's awesome. So engineering, what was it? And then you changed. Then obviously you did like the production, the communications portion. Like what was the engineering at first? Did you have like a field, a portion of it that you wanted to go into?
Not exactly. I went through a number of programs and I got a full scholarship for engineering at North Carolina State University. Engineering is very big here.
Cool.
It's one of the top majors. But I just, I was always really good at science and math. I just was not convinced that that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So, when it came time to decide, I was like, I don't want to, I don't want to do this. I remember my dad thought I was out of my mind for giving up a full scholarship to any place. But I just knew it wasn't what I wanted. And at that time, I really I thought I wanted to be a journalist. There weren't that many female reporters and journalists at the time, anchors at the time, but I was fascinated by those who were. I mean, I remember Barbara Walters and Connie Chung and people like that.
Yeah.
And that was what I wanted to do. And I wanted to go to school in New York City. And I got into Columbia, but my dad wouldn't let me go. So Washington was actually, it was kind of a compromise because we had relatives there. And we figured, that's a great place if you want to do news. There's a lot of news in Washington. And
Yeah.
um, so yeah, so that was that.
That's awesome. How about like a dream type of character that you like to play, or like a genre that you want to act in? Is there something that you would want?
I've never, I just finished watching The Jackal. Have you seen that?
The Jack? Oh, with Edward Raymond, right? Ed Raymond,
With, oh gosh. Ed, oh gosh, his name is
Eddie
escaping
Redmayne,
me
or
right.
I think,
Thank you.
yeah,
Yes,
I know
that's
you're
right.
talking about. Yeah, it's a remake of a Robert Redford movie, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Cool. Yeah, I saw a cool
I
thing of the shot for shot remake they did of one scene. I'm sure they did it for a bunch, but there was like this rifle scene, and I watched the side by side. I love when people do that. They really do it right. Like it really
Yeah.
looked exactly the same, which is neat. I got to check that out.
It's a great series. I just finished it last night. I would love to get to play the kind of, that kind of a role, not the jackal per se, but I liked the investigator. The Lauren Lynch, I think is her name. I think yeah, I thought she just was brilliant and I would love to play that kind of a role.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've worked on so many cool shows that become obviously, like we just talked about Deal or No Deal, but like these shows that become like larger than life, like that are forever in the ethos. And one that you're on, and it's such an enjoyable show that you get hooked on. Was Outer Banks. I know you were on one episode of that, but talk about a show that was just and that's shot there too, right? They shoot that in North Carolina.
It's actually shot in Charleston, South Carolina.
Well, that's what it was. Yeah, yeah. It was like exactly. Yeah. The
Yeah.
next state over
Yeah.
instead of actually using the Outer Banks, right?
Right, right. Yeah, that's a great show, and that has just really blown up, hasn't it?
Yeah, isn't it? It's just so crazy. Like you said, you would never know. Even when that show came out, it was like during might have been like in the beginning of COVID, and it was like, oh, let me try this show, and it's like, wow. And then then what I went to, just like every show, like when you have an idea and you have it for even for one movie, and like we talk about sequels a lot, it's like the basis of the podcast, and it's like it's so crazy how it can go, because once you make that first movie, you're like, wow, this is great, or that first series of a show, or first season, it's like, all right, well, what are you gonna do next? And it's like, well, you got to do something different. You can't do the same thing or you'd be done. Like the fact that Outer Banks it just got crazy. Like the stuff that those kids were doing was insanity. But it's fun. But that's what you kind of appreciate. It's like, you know what, they really jumped the shark. Like what's his name from
Yeah,
Chip, the
yeah.
actor that plays the dad, like fake blowing himself up in the one episode. Spoiler alert if
Mhm.
people haven't seen, I'm sure people have seen that yet. But
That's it.
yeah, no, it's so much fun. But that's cool. It's been so much fun. I'm happy we connected. I love hearing your story, and I think it's again, right place, right time, and the person they didn't know when they went casting that day, like scouting for talent, like what they were looking for, but they saw you and they found it. And then the fact that you booked your first gig, and then a few days later you're doing it, and then the rest is history.
Yeah, yeah. Who knew?
Yeah, like you said, you never know. Like the Friends pilot, you just never know what's going to hit. Even when it comes to like people and like different jobs, on set, behind or front of the camera, you never know.
You really don't. You just gotta be but you
Yeah,
have to be willing and open to stuff. Otherwise, it won't happen for sure.
exactly. And I think you being like, hey, let me do the assistant part, seeing the other side of the industry. Who knows if you took that out, maybe everything in your career would be the same, like work wise. But I would probably guess there's so many little nuggets, things that maybe just through osmosis, like doing the editing, seeing how things are cut, what they're looking for in casting, like when you did the casting on that show, those little things probably slipped into your head, and it just worked when it came to the other side when you're going in for that audition.
Yeah, I think so for sure.